Hello, everyone. Um, if you're here today for the Teak Investor webinar, you're definitely in the right place. We'll be getting started here momentarily, and we are very eager to talk to you today about Teak investment opportunities in Nicaragua and as well as residency. Before we get started today, please note that at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A button, and you can take that opportunity right now to say hello and let us know where you're joining us from, what country, what city, and we'll get started in a few minutes. We're just waiting for some people to join, everybody to join.
Cher, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Well, this is exciting. I think we had over 300 and some folks register for the webinar. So,
Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, it is amazing. Obviously, we're talking about something that's very important to folks, and
Yes.
with that many people coming online, we're going to try to keep things to about 45 minutes today.
Okay.
I have a hard stop at 45,
Okay.
but we can certainly make sure that any unanswered questions, folks can get in contact with us and get a copy of the recording, of course, and talk to our
Yep.
property consultants as well. But
Okay.
no, I'm excited. This is always fun. I love talking about teak, and I'm just so glad
And
that
Nicaragua.
and Nicaragua. But we're going to talk about Panama too. So Panama and Nicaragua, both
Good.
for teak. Um,
Awesome.
but uh, but yeah, just to have so many folks signed up for this thing is unbelievable. So yeah,
Yeah, we've got
yeah.
Texas in the house. We've got Jacob from San Juan del Sur in Nicaragua.
Okay.
We've got James at Grand Bayman. We've got Ben from Pensacola, Leah from Vancouver, BOS, Daryl from Michigan. Ooh, Norway's in the house.
Wow. Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
This is great.
Welcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, so we'll be starting in a minute, and Mike is going to be hosting us today. And if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to enter it in the Q&A section. We will have time at the end to go through as many questions as we can.
All right. What do you think? Should we get started?
Sure, why not?
All right.
So thanks everyone for being here today. Welcome to the ECI Development Teak Investor webinar hosted by our very own Mike Cobb. He's the founder and CEO of ECI Development. Mike, thanks for being here today, and I'll hand it over to you.
Fantastic. I'm gonna get us started here, and that work? You can see the screen, share?
Yes.
Wonderful. Look at that beautiful forest. Yeah. So anyway, one of the things that I do get excited about when we're talking about teak is this notion of, asset protection. I think one of the misnomers of asset protection is that we always, not always, but most of us many times think about protecting things when we think about asset protection, right? Lawyers are always talking about, making an asset protection structure. Maybe it's a corporation or a trust or a non-revocable trust, international trust. There's lots of these structures out there that we think about when we talk about, asset protection, and it's always for the protection of things, whether it's our real estate, it's our homes, it's stocks and bonds. It could be, cars. It could be lots of artwork. It could be lots of different things, right? But the most important asset we have is ourselves, right? Our physical being is the most important asset that we embody, right? And so a lot of times we get caught up in this asset protection of other things, and we forget about protecting the most important asset we have. And that's really foundational to today's presentation. Yes, we're going to talk about teak. We're going to talk about teak as a great investment. I made an investment in 100 acres of teak. I started a teak plantation now 24 years ago in Panama. I made it absolutely for an investment reason only. I wasn't thinking about asset protection of this particular asset, me. However, over the years, I've come to learn that teak is also a very, very valuable tool in helping us to provide asset protection for ourselves in the form of a second residency. And that's a big part of today's presentation. It's going to revolve around Teak, but at the end of the day, using Teak as a tool to obtain a second residency is powerful, because we do, by doing that, give ourselves incredible asset protection. And we'll talk about why and how that's important in a minute. It's always important to know who you're working with, right? If you decide to move ahead with the Teak investment, who are you working with? Well, you're working with a company that's been around since 1996, ECI Development. Today, we're operating in 5 countries. We have projects and joint ventures in 7. And we've got a great leadership team. We've got folks that have been around the entire 28 years. We've got people that have been with us for 10, 15 and more. And so what we have is this incredible brain trust that knows how to do business in Latin America, because we've been doing it for a long, long time. Our company is very, very successful in the development space, and we're also very, very successful in the forestry space and the residency space as well. So a great team of people getting the job done day in and day out. As an investment, as a standalone investment, Teak is actually something that I would say almost every person has the financial ability to do, right? An investment of just under $7,000, $6,880, right? 6,880 turns into $94,000 over a 25-year period. Now, a lot of times people go, 25 years, that's too long. Look, if you're thinking about cash flow cycles, right? We get a paycheck every 2 weeks. If we're landlords, if we have rental properties, right? We're property investors. We get a rent check every month. If we're stock investors, maybe we get a quarterly dividend or an annual dividend, right? Those are cash flow cycles. But a 25-year cash flow cycle is exactly that. It's a cash flow cycle, because when you own the trees and you own the land, which you do in our Teak investment, you own the land, you own the trees. In 25 years, we cut the trees, you get this big windfall, $94,000, right? Then we replant the trees. And in 25 years, the next harvest comes. And you might say to yourself, I'm not going to be around for 50 years. Fine. That's probably true. I won't be around for 50, I don't think, right? But my children will be, my grandchildren will be, my great-grandchildren will be. 25-year cash flows are really generational wealth stewardship tools as well as residency tools, right? Because you're setting this cash flow cycle that occurs once every generation, once every 25 years. And so, it's important to kind of get in our heads that, yeah, it's 25 years, but it's a $7,000 investment. I mean, most of us, spend far more money on cars and other things that are depreciating assets, way more than $7,000 every 25 years. If we can set aside $7,000 and say, you know what, in 25 years, either I'm going to get a nice return, my kids are going to get a nice return, my grandkids or whoever it is, right? And then 25 years after that, the next one's going to get. That's the beauty of a 25-year cash flow cycle. And the fact that as a standalone investment for $6,880, right? A lot less than most of us will run through cars over the next 3 to 5 years even, right? This is an incredible opportunity. I want to talk about the why people are looking at Teak as a way to protect the most important asset we have, which is ourself, right? I think there are 2 train wrecks happening right now in the North America, US, Canada, even in Europe and some of the other parts of the world, right? There's this train wreck of debt, right? The governments are spending, these are, US spending numbers, but, it's out of control, right? The governments are spending like drunken sailors, as the saying goes, right? They are just outrageously, trillions of dollars over budget. And if you look at the euro, the spending power of the euro, the spending power of dollar, right? Just down, down, down over any, long period of time. However, if we look at something like gold, say, or Bitcoin, right? These assets are appreciating assets over the same kinds of periods of time. Gold, especially over that long period, Bitcoin over a much shorter period of time. But here's the trap that we get into sometimes. I think many of us on this webinar, we believe in hard assets. We believe in metals. We believe in real estate. Teak, it's a commodity. It's a hard asset, right? And you own the land. So you own the real estate and the commodity, which is pretty cool. But we get into this trap of thinking, well, I've got these hard assets. I've got metals. I've got Bitcoin. I've got real estate. I'm protected against, this debt train wreck. And that's really true. But we make this leap that might or might not be also true, which is that gold, cryptocurrencies, real estate, they also protect us against, on the freedom train wreck, because there really is a train wreck of freedom happening too. Many of us recognize that. Most of us on this call today recognize it, don't we? We see this train wreck of freedom. I don't know about you, but I can't tell the difference between travel, school, and prison anymore, right? It all looks about the same when we're doing it, right? This is Canada, and people think, oh, I got, bank account, right? I mean, like they froze bank accounts in Canada. They froze people's bank accounts. If you had an ATM card, a credit card, or a bank account, and it was frozen, what did you do? Right? I mean, this is serious stuff. This isn't gonna happen. This is happening. Right. And then the idea of, show me your papers. I was traveling at a conference in New Orleans, and we had to prove to get into a restaurant. We actually had to prove that we had didn't have COVID. We'd taken a test, we were vaccinated, or whatever it was. Show me your papers to be able to enter a restaurant. I mean, again, this is stuff we look at it in history and we say, oh, that can't happen again, but it is happening. And then we have the governments choosing which businesses are going to be successful. Walmart, for example, and Target, like they could stay right on open through COVID, but these small businesses were, forced to close, right? So now the government's in the business of deciding, who's going to be in business, right? I mean, these are real things, and they are infringements upon our freedom, our sovereignty, right? As individuals, or, do this or else, right? I mean, we saw this kind of stuff too. But then it just gets to the level of ridiculous, right? Here's a guy paddleboarding out there giving COVID to nobody, right? And, they send in the Coast Guard, spend, $50,000, $75,000 of your tax money to come arrest this poor guy, right? Meanwhile, all these famous, rich and powerful people are out, not wearing masks, partying at the French Laundry, flying on an airplane without a mask, right? And these are the same people that condemn the rest of us. So, we just have to understand where we are in the pecking order, right? We're not the rich and powerful, I don't think. Maybe some of y'all are, I'm not. And so, for us, this infringement upon freedom is real. And no amount of gold, no amount of crypto, no amount of real estate is really going to protect our sovereignty. We have to do that ourselves. And Teak is a phenomenal way to do it, because when there's a train wreck, we have three choices. We can enjoy the ride, right? We can catch the last train out, unless you're that guy, right? But here's the really cool thing, right? Because we're on this webinar tonight, because we're paying attention, we're awake, we understand that there are some threats to our freedom, and we're seeing them, right? We are so far out in front that we can actually have the air-conditioned seats inside that train. We don't have to wait till the last train out, right? We can take action today. As the saying goes, you don't want to put plywood up on your windows in the middle of a hurricane. You want to do that before the hurricane hits, right? So this is the same idea. Look, we know what's happening. We can see it. So we have the opportunity to take care of ourselves, to protect our freedom while the sun is still shining. And what does that really mean? Gosh, it just means having a plan B. It just means being prepared, right? You own the property overseas. You get international investment diversification. And most importantly, you pick up a second residency. You pick up a plan B. You pick up the asset protection of the most important asset you have, which is yourself. Because if things really go off the rail, we don't have to be looking for how do we hang on to that train like that poor guy. No, we're already inside the train. We already have our second residency somewhere else. And Teak, in this particular example, this is an exact example. 4 quarter acres. So 1 acre of baby teak in Nicaragua is $30,000 with all the legal fees, all the residency fees, right? So for, 31, call it $31,000. You own the land, you own the trees. In 25 years, it'll be worth $375,000, right? But for the next 25 years, you will have a residency card that allows you to go and live in Nicaragua should you ever want to, or hopefully not need to, for as long as you would like. This is the most powerful form of asset protection there is. Protection of us, our most valuable asset. It's sovereignty protection. It's sovereignty asset protection. And, you can say, well, I can, I can wait a little longer. That's true. But you know what? The countries that are out there offering second residencies and citizenships, they're raising their prices. They're raising their prices all the time because they get the joke. It's supply and demand. As more and more people decide to get on that train or on airplanes, as we know, the first 50 seats on an airplane are pretty cheap. The next 50 are a little more expensive. Those last 5, 10 seats on an airplane are very, very expensive, right? Same thing with residencies. The countries are getting the joke. They're saying to themselves, you know what? Wow, there's a lot of people coming here looking for a second residency. Let's push the price up. And so they are. So if we have the opportunity and we have the means to do something right now, we should, because it will simply just be more expensive later. This really is something that you can do right now. You can do it today. Own timber, right? Own teak. We're going to shift gears. We're going to talk about teak for a little bit and talk about why this asset class is such an incredibly powerful investment tool, as well as giving us the means to obtain that second residency. And so we talk about investments in terms of these goals, right? Is it diversification? I do an exercise with a lot of people in the room. And my favorite is when there are hundreds of people. I just was in Texas a few weeks ago, or I guess not even a few weeks, 2 weeks ago anyway. And I had everybody stand up. And I went through this exercise. How many of you think a train wreck's coming? Are you 50% sure, 70% sure, 80% sure, whatever? Stay standing. And then I just simply ask, if you have a second residency outside your home country, stay standing. And almost everybody sits down, right? I mean, this plan B, that's the last one on here, this plan B. But this diversification is important. How many of you actually have any of your investable net worth in hard assets outside your home country? I ask that question at audiences all the time, and very few hands go up, right? Diversification is important. Look, I would never bet against the largest economy in the world, the U.S. economy. I wouldn't bet against it, right? But I also think the train wreck of debt's pretty serious, problem happening. There's a train wreck coming, right? We just don't know when or how far away it is, right? But diversification, just simply prudent. A small piece of your investment portfolio outside your home country, I think makes sense. And the folks that are looking at real estate assets, hard assets outside their home countries, are doing something wise and prudent. Earnings, yeah, it's a 25-year cash flow cycle. There are earnings. They're huge earnings, right? It's just on a generational scale, right? Once every 25 years. Security, that's coming back to us again. It's the freedom, the legacy we leave, because again, we harvest the trees. We get the first harvest in 25 years, for example. Our kids get the next one. Our grandkids get the next one. What an incredible legacy we can leave for future generations. And then that plan B. Hopefully we never need it. Hopefully we never have to try to get on that plane and fly out. But if we do, we're going to be awfully glad that we have that in place. Teak timber, well, teak is an incredible resource that's been plantation grown for about 400 years, starting in Southeast Asia by the Indians. They grew it in plantations. So it's got this incredibly long track record. The challenge right now in the industry is that they've been harvesting wild teak, and there's not a whole lot of it left in the wild. The biggest trees have been taken out of the forests. What's this? That 85 acres are destroyed every minute, right? We're hearing about it in the rainforest, the Amazons, and places like that. But the deforestation of teak specifically, because it can be singled out for illegal logging. They can go cut down, 10 of them, drag them out with horses, right, in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day. In some cases, you're out in the remote areas, right? Because it's just simply so valuable. People go out to the forest and cut these teak trees down, and these old teak trees, and so the demand is continuing to go up, but the global supply is shrinking. The top one I've circled there, it's kind of interesting, but I actually think the bottom chart is far more interesting. And I have a few minutes. I want to just point to it, and then we'll talk about the top one in a second. The bottom chart, if you look at the green line, it says natural deforested teak, right? The value of that from 72, climbs, and then around 2000, it starts to fall off. And plantation teak, right, is surging in value. And somewhere around, what would that be? Maybe 2005 or 6, 7, something like that. the value of plantation teak now exceeds the value of deforested wild teak because so many companies, Home Depot, Lowe's, the major wholesalers, in Europe and Canada and other places around the world, I mean, they're looking for plantation grown teak. That illegal stuff's being, kind of kicked into the black market. But for the mainstream consumer set, the vast majority of teak being used and consumed in the marketplace, it needs to be plantation. So now you've got this supply and demand imbalance. And we talk about long track records. Teak has been grown in plantations, for 350, 400 years, right? But if you look, the wholesale price, median wholesale price of teak in the last 50 years, since 1972, it's at 52 years, right? The average increase in price is 5.5% a year. That's just the value of the wood itself, right? That's not the tree growing. So you've got two things going on when you own teak timber, when you plant baby teak. Like you've got the tree growing, producing more volume of wood over a long period of time. And you have the price over the last 52 years going up 5.5% a year. So you've got this double growth thing going on, which is incredible. And teak, sadly, is being harvested 8 to 10 times faster than it's being replanted. Yes, there are plantations going in. We planted ours 24 years ago, and there are thousands of hectares in Panama, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica that were planted. But for every 1,000 hectares of teak that are being planted, 8 to 10,000 hectares are being cut. Now they're being replanted again, but the cycle to get there is 25 years, right? And so what you have is this supply and demand imbalance in the marketplace, and we can all imagine what that will do to pricing in the future. Above average returns and ultra safe. If you just look at these indexes, right? Inflation from 87 to 12, went up whatever, about 75%. The S&P was up 200%. Timber's up 350%. So it's better, but it also doesn't have the same kind of volatility that the stock market has. And looking at indexes, right? You go back to 71 through 2010, right? A $10,000 investment would be, worth 1.5 million. And if you look at the IRRs, which is really an important number to look at, you've got 13% IRR, internal rate of return. That's incredible IRRs over a long period of time. So again, teak has proven itself over long periods of time as something that can be grown in plantations, commercially managed, and then turned into lumber, and the lumber itself is then highly valuable. A friend of mine, Steve Sugarrood, talks about teak. They grow through recessions and wars and stock market crashes and real estate crashes. They give you built-in investment growth that isn't guaranteed with the stock. And I'll just make one point. During COVID, we went through two thinning seasons, two maintenance seasons. One was a thinning season. And the trees, because of people couldn't move, right? People couldn't move from one location to another in Panama and in Nicaragua. So the trees did not get the proper maintenance or the thinning in 1 year. They still grew. They just didn't grow as fast or as optimally. And so, we've added 2 more years to the growth cycle on both our mature plantation and our teenage plantation. And if that were happen again, we just add a couple more years to the process. So they do still grow. They just don't necessarily grow optimally. And what we're really looking for is the optimization of the return on investment. And that means, proper maintenance, absolute scientific management, proper maintenance, and thinning of the teak during the process. 2008 to 12, our trees still grew. Horrible real estate and stock market crisis, but the trees kept growing. One of the things coming back to this 25-year cycle that's hard, again, for people to really get their heads around is, oh my gosh, I'm not going to live that long. You know what? Neither are these 3 guys. I mean, I'm pretty sure none of these 3 are living another 25 years, right? But they're still planting trees that have 15, 20, 25, 30, and 40-year life cycles, right? They understand the power of stewarding wealth into the future. A $7,000 investment, you guys are investing millions of dollars, right? And tens of millions of dollars into timber, right? But a $7,000 investment, right? Like to steward that into the future is just a wonderful thing. And again, this idea of track record, centuries on plantation. The teak itself, the reason it's been so powerful in the marketplace to sum it up are the qualities of the wood itself, right? It's hard. It's really, really hard wood. And the dry season is what creates that hardness in the wood. And we have a slide on that in a minute. Yeah, they use it in furniture, obviously, boats and Chris Craft and yachts and things like that. But it's the fact that it's resistant to rot and the elements is really one of its most endearing and powerful qualities. And it's a sexy thing. I mean, now people are using teak hardwood flooring in their very expensive homes, right? It's a status symbol, which is wonderful. There's a chair that got cleaned up and refinished, and it really looks just as good as new. Outdoor furniture, marine environments. These are the reasons that teak does so well. Is because it holds up in those environments. Location selection is extremely important to get high quality teak. Teak will grow anywhere in the tropics. Truly, it will grow anywhere in the tropics. High quality teak is produced by just a couple factors, and a dry season is one of them. I think I have a slide on that in a second. Anyway, but our teak is about 130 miles due east of Panama City, and the idea is that as the trees are harvested, taken to mill, they can just be taken straight to Panama City, loaded into containers, and shipped anywhere in the world from Panama. Panama is a huge logistical location. Here's the optimal location slide. The dry season. The dry season is what cures teak and makes it very, very valuable. That's a big one. The well-drained soil, the elevation, the rainfall, the temperature, all that stuff's really, really important. The single most important factor is the dry season. Professional management, correct. I mean, when I bought my farm, my cattle pasture in Panama, gosh, 25 years ago now, I didn't know anything about teak, literally nothing. And so we hired a professional forestry management company, Heyo Forestal, and they have taken care of our plantations, now plural, since then. It's really, really important to find the right people with the scientific knowledge, the experience, who can take care of the forest in a way that produces the optimal, most valuable teak. 1998, the seedlings. 99, we had our clearing of the brush. It was a cattle pasture. It was kind of brushy. And we planted the trees. There's 2000. You can start to see some of the trees growing. But by 2007, just 7 years into it, you can see the trees are really, really growing. They're tall. Again, through good management of the forest. But this is the dry season. The trees lose a lot of their leaves. So when the teak forest gets to be about 3, maybe 4 years old, it really becomes almost impervious to fire, because the trees, you can see how high the canopy is, and the leaf litter on the bottom is maintained, and the brush is cut. So again, the scientific management works. We take visits. I hope that some of y'all will come and visit. 2016, this is a visit to one of our plantations. The trees obviously growing very well, tall and straight, big long logs that convert well to lumber. This is our teenage teak farm visit back a few years ago. We now have 3 plantations in Panama and 1 plantation in Nicaragua. 2023, here we are with taking a look with the farm guys. And it's true. Definitely some people will think you're crazy. If you get off the webinar, you decide to move forward with teak ownership, and you tell somebody about it, that they probably will tell you you're crazy. That they really will. And it's okay. Crazy like a fox, right?
Mike Cobb in Panama at our teak plantation. This is our mature plantation, planted 23 years ago in the Darien province. I mean, just a beautiful, beautiful teak plantation that once was a cattle pasture like this, deforestation. And you know what? It's wonderful to be able to come in and plant thousands and thousands of teak trees and turn a cattle pasture back into forest. It's also a very lucrative investment, and it's sustainable. You harvest in 25 years, you replant. Your children get the next harvest. 25 years later, there's another harvest. That's for your great-grandchildren, and so on and so on. Please give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Find out how you can take deforested farmland and turn it into beautiful forests and create generational wealth for your families for centuries in the future.
Yeah. So again, teak has got an incredible track record. They're harvesting it a lot faster than they're replanting it. Yeah. And the old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is right now. Why teak? You can build a legacy for yourself, for your children. You can own this real, tangible asset, this hard asset, right? You own the land, you own the timber. If it's an investment and you have no desire for a residency, you can use a self-directed IRA to make a direct investment. We accept crypto, we accept metals in payment for teak. In fact, it's a great way. A lot of folks have used both crypto and metals to obtain their teak and teak residencies. And then the most important piece is this idea of a residency. As a direct investment, as little as $7,000. It's a great investment. Again, we will watch our cars depreciate more than that over the next 3, 4, 5 years. This is an investment that will pay off huge for yourself in 25 years, your kids, your grandkids, 50, 75, 100 years into the future. But truly, if you're looking for asset protection for the most important asset you have, which is yourself, your sovereignty, your freedom, teak is an incredibly powerful way to do that. 1 acre of teak, you own the land, you own the trees, $31,000, and you own both of those, and you get a residency card that gives you the right to live in Nicaragua for as long as you want or need to. This is powerful, powerful insurance. It's a plan B. I hope we never need it. I have mine. I hope you'll get yours. And I hope we never need it. But if we ever do, won't we be glad we have it? So that's how you get a hold of us, info@teakhardwoods.com. I hope that you'll request some information. We have some information on the teak. We have a residency guide. We've got some other materials. I'm going to give a quick shameless plug for my book. I just have a book. It's going to release on July 22nd. If anyone here would like to get a copy of my book, it's $2.99 until July 22nd, then it jumps up to $20. So $3 now, $20 later. If you'd like to get a copy of the book, I'd love for you to do that. It's a pre-order. You'll get it as a Kindle version in the middle of July. You can send us an email. I'm going to go back to the other slide where we're going to stay for Q&A. But Cher, I'm going to hand it over to you. I thank everybody for being with us today. This has been a really great presentation about what teak can do for you. Now I'd like to hear if we have some questions about anything that we can clarify or update for you.
Yeah, we do have quite a few questions. I'm trying to sort through them, but I think we'll start with what entities can the land title be held in? Personal, LLC, trust?
Yeah. Great question. The answer would be dependent upon whether or not you want the residency. If you're looking for the residency, the land must be owned in your name, you and your spouse, because you can combine and get residencies for both. But anyway, if it's for residency, it must be in your own name. If it's not for residency, then yes, you can own it in your own name. You can own it in an LLC. You can own it inside a trust. You can even own it inside a self-directed IRA. Although in Panama, they make you jump through a little hoop. Your self-directed IRA has to set up an LLC, and the LLC then owns the teak. So yeah, you have a lot of different options as to how you own and control the asset. Trusts are actually really good way to do it if you're not looking for the residency. Although I have a thought on that too, but because a trust lets it stay in one entity for kind of forever, right? And so because this is multi-generational, and you decide what happens with the trust assets, the ownership of the asset would stay in the trust for 25, 50, 75, 100 years, right? And on and on. And so if you have a trust, but yet you want the residency, the way to get both, sort of have your cake and eat it too, is to buy the teak in your own name. And after 5 years, you've now met all the qualifications. Your residency is permanently renewable. You can then move that asset into your trust 5 years in after you own it. So I think that's probably a strategy that if you wanted the residency, but you wanted it inside a trust, you could do that.
Thank you. And when I'm getting I've gotten multiple questions of is, are we going to be able to, are we going to share the recording? Yes, the link to this recording will be emailed to everybody that attended today. And you'll be able to share that as well. And then how much teak can, like, if you buy one acre of teak, is that residency for one person, or can you do spouse?
Yeah, so it qualifies you for residency as an individual. Your spouse, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, I'm going to say it's a couple grand. So there's extra legal and government fees, but the investment in the teak qualifies a husband and wife to qualify. It also includes minor children. And so if you have one teak investment, you could actually get a family, a big family, as long as all the children were under 18. You would just pay a separate legal and government fee for each of the additional people.
And I believe that's the same in Nicaragua and Panama, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. We have a trained forester in the US that's interested in what kinds of natural disasters could happen to the tree crop, like fire or
Sure.
insect infestation or things like that.
Yeah, I think all of the above. Fire is the greatest risk
Yep.
in years 1 through 3 because the trees are fairly small, fairly close to the ground. And so if you have a big fire that comes through, that can definitely, kill the trees, right?
Yeah.
Wipe them out. Once the trees are 4 or 5 years old and you cut all the low branches off, as part of the thinning and the maintenance, right? Because what you really want is you want the growth focused on two things. Early on, the first 10 to 15 years on height, right? Big, tall, straight trunks, right? And then the last 10 years, you want the tree to focus on girth. And how you do that, there's lots of different ways we do that, right? But anyway, but on the fire question, one of the things is you're always trimming the branches up as the trees get taller. So you just keep a really high canopy. And so what you've done largely is really confine the fire to the leaf litter that's on the ground. So fire does happen. We have fire breaks. We have people on property as well. So you control for that as best you can. And the idea of insect or pest disease, whatever those things, it is a monoculture. That's a reality. And so, right, an infestation that was affecting teak could wipe out a plantation. That's absolutely possible. The good news is that we've grown teak as humans have grown teak specifically in plantation for 350, 400 years. And so there's a lot of experience, there's a lot of data, and that data was very, very well collected and published by the British. And so this data set is comprehensive. And when you hire professional forestry management companies like Heo Forestall, and they're not the only one, but I thought they were the best at the time, and I still do. You get that expertise, you get the management expertise. So if they spot things, they can deal with it. But fire's a risk, pest is a risk. And look, we're talking about countries overseas, right? There's political risk, right? Laws can change, things can happen. It's all, by the way, that's all very well detailed in the document itself, and you can read a lot more. But any investment carries risk, right? It's risk reward. And so I wouldn't bet the farm on this. But for a small investment like $7,000, I think that's probably, again, for some tiny percent of your investable net worth, it's probably a good risk reward calculation. But that's an individual decision, and people would want to make that, based on their own personal financial circumstances.
And based on those potential risks, we'll call them, are any of those insurable? Like, can you insure your parcel?
Yeah, it's a great question. We get asked that almost every webinar or every presentation.
It's a good
The
question.
answer is, it's a great question. The answer is no. Yeah, I'm sure that you could probably go to somebody like, the Lloyd's Consortium in London, and I'm sure they would figure out some way to insure it. But the general answer is no. There are really no insurance companies in Panama or Nicaragua that are insuring teak plantations.
But I think too with I think you made a good point with the fire after, the risk is mainly in the first, the
Yeah.
intro years, and once they're kind of established, even if there is a fire, there's a good chance they'll come back.
Yeah, correct. And we've had some fires in parts of the plantation. Again, it burns the leaf litter. And again, we have people there to kind of, you try to get it put out or control it. And it really does not damage the trees really at all. It's not to say that a fire couldn't damage the trees, a big fire, but so far it hasn't. And again, the idea of professional management, having people who know what they're doing to take care of your plantation is critically important. And the gentleman who asked that question, it's a great question. And if you're in the forestry business in the U.S., you obviously understand, the importance of proper management, professional management.
Yeah. Where is the plantation in Nicaragua?
Great question. The plantation in Nicaragua is actually on the Grand Pacifica property. We have 2,500 acres. We've got about just under 300 acres of teak planted at this point, and we've designated about another 300 acres of area for future teak expansion there. If we need to, we can acquire some additional land on farms next to us, around us, to grow beyond that. But right at Grand Pacifica, which again is nice. We've got security, we've got people. So we've got rangers that ride the property. In addition to the professional forestry management, we've got sort of the other pieces right there as well.
And someone wants to know, how do I use metals from another country to purchase the teak?
Metals from another country probably gets a little tricky. I don't know how you ship metals. You can, I mean, you ship metals internationally, but basically it's a pretty simple process. We go online. Let's say we say, all right, you want to do this. We go online Friday at noon and we look at the spot price. We agree that's what it is. It's so many ounces of gold, silver, some combination of the both. And we set it. Right? It's done. It's over. That's how many ounces it is based on the spot price at noon Friday. And then if the price of gold and silver goes up, it's good for me. If it goes down, it's good for you, right? So, but it's pretty straightforward process that we've done, and I think internationally, we could do it as well. I'd have to check with some folks on that, but I think we could. We'd want somebody. I don't know that our vault. I think our vault can receive an international shipment. I assume they can. I would ask that question.
Okay. And this one is, because I'm not sure we're going to be able to get to all the questions, and this was submitted anonymously, so I just want to make sure it's answered.
Yeah.
Because if we don't get to everyone, we can email you and get in touch that way too.
Yep.
Is the annual maintenance fee likely to increase during the 25-year cycle?
Yeah, I can't remember what the contract says, but there's a provision. It has to do with the inflation index in the country that so if it's a Nicaragua plantation, the inflation indicator's tied to Nicaraguan inflation, and Panama, it's tied to Panama inflation. So yeah, it probably will increase over time, but there's a cap on it based on the inflation index of each country.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. That actually probably something I should include in the presentation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, we answered that one already. Is
Okay, I think
there
we have
any
time for
yearly
one
maintenance
more,
fee?
Cher. Pick a good
Yes.
one. We have one more. Then I got to go.
Any other annual fees involved other than the
Um,
annual maintenance fee?
No, annual maintenance fee. That also covers any property taxes, although we're property tax exempt in Panama as a registered forestry investment. In Nicaragua, we're not exempt from property taxes, but the annual maintenance fee covers maintenance and taxes. So yeah. All right. Anyway, Cher, thank you so much. I'm sorry, I do have to run.
Thank you, Mike.
But if folks, you're on this webinar, you'll get a copy of the recording. You want more information, our residency consultants, our teak consultants, they are here for you. They will answer any and all questions. Spend time, get on the phone, however you want to communicate. They'll do that with you. I really hope that you've invested, 45 minutes of your precious asset, your time today. I hope that many of you will decide to move forward and do something. We're here for you. Thank you again for attending. Cher, thanks for making this all happen today.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Bye
Thanks,
now.
everyone. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.